if you want to be good at anything, you have to be prepared to look like a fool. Right? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Right.
You know,
the network, I think, is critical. No matter how connected this world gets on the electronic front, there's no substitute for picking up the phone and calling somebody. So ask those questions, always be trying to grow that network, and certainly never burn any bridges either.
Hey, welcome to the Mastering the Military Transition series of the Prize podcast. My name is PJ, and I'll be your host. The purpose of this podcast is to share the story of those who have successfully transitioned out of the military so that you can see some of the tools and tricks necessary to have a successful transition of your own. That way, you don't have to stumble across some of the same things that I know that myself and my team at Prize had to struggle with ourselves. At Prize, we believe in a world where all enjoy the freedom to grow. And that's why we're developing the Prize app. If you want to find out more, click on the prize.vet link in the show notes below. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Please like, subscribe, and if you have any feedback for us, please drop it in the comments.
Today we have a guest with us today who is in the Lehigh Valley. His name is Andrew Lawler. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
So Andrew was in the Marine Corps for 9 years, got out as a captain. He was a KC-130J pilot. Was it J?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. He was deployed twice to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Yes.
EAS'd in 2007. Spent 7 years as a business leader at Lutron, 2.5 years as VP of Northeast Operations, Northeast Operations,
Northeast,
at VEC Incorporated, and 7 years as a president of Westside Hammer Electric. And right now, you just started this new role, right?
About 6 months ago. Yes.
Yeah, of the COO of Barry Isett and Associates, and he also volunteers and coaches with numerous organizations around the Lehigh Valley, which is awesome. And if you all don't do that, I highly recommend it. So, hey, Andrew, just to start us off, I would love for you to give a rundown, if you don't mind, of how you got here. Who made Andrew, or what made Andrew who you are today?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share a story and hopefully help a bunch of people in the process make the transition for themselves.
Yes, sir.
But my story kind of got started. I was a Northeast kid, grew up in Pennsylvania. Mom, dad, older brother, 2 younger sisters, and I had a lot of opportunity in sports and volunteering as a little guy, and that kind of set me on my path towards high school and some leadership opportunities through the sports programs in particular, captains of sports teams, and then that kind of led me down this path of trying to find a way into the United States Naval Academy. So I was fortunate enough to have that as my college option coming out of high school. And then when I was there, I just really, truly fell in love with the Marine Corps, the whole ethos and that warfighter spirit in particular. So I went to the Naval Academy thinking I was Top Gun generation. I'm going to fly off the back of an aircraft carrier. I'm going to be Maverick, right? And then I just honestly just absolutely fell in love with the Marines that I had a chance to interact with there. And so that set me on my path of got to find a way into the Marine Corps. And I was fortunate enough to find the best of both worlds because I was able to get a pilot spot coming out of the Naval Academy in Marine Aviation. And so that took me through Quantico, and then flight training, and was able to select my first choice, KC-130s. Wanted to be land-based, wanted nothing to do with a boat.
Wow, so that changed, huh? You were like Top Gun, and okay, all right.
It did change, yeah. I wanted nothing to do with a boat.
Yeah, get it.
Sorry.
Nope, I get it.
And then just that leadership, that overall leadership development kind of set me on that path. Op tempo was pretty high during the 2005 timeframe, 2006 into 2007. I had been a year past my obligation at that stage. I had one daughter who was 3 years old. I'd missed half her life. I had another daughter who was just born, and my wife and I made a very, very difficult decision at the time because we absolutely loved what we were doing. We truly did. We loved the Marine Corps. We loved the squadron life. We loved the friendships that we had formed. I loved what I was doing as a pilot. 2 opportunities kind of deploy and go take the plane into combat, which, you train for hours and hours and months and years, and then you get to go do it, and it was very fulfilling. But family came first for me at the time.
Right.
Still comes first for me now.
Absolutely.
Still has a lot to do with the decisions I make and where those priorities lie, and so we made that difficult decision to exit, and that's kind of where I guess the story begins in some ways for this podcast, is talking about what that transition was like. But I tell people nowadays that my career has been one of shrinking geography. And so Marine Corps, I operated globally. I found a job with Lutron, and we can get into how I navigated that immediate transition. But found a job with Lutron Electronics here in the Lehigh Valley. Was with them for 7 years, had about 10 or 15 different jobs or roles within Lutron. But I was nationally focused there. I was on an airplane every other week, going to different cities and on the sales side of things.
Right.
And then I went from global to national. I joined VEC largely through that entrepreneurial spirit that I think Lutron in particular does a great job of developing. And so I joined VEC with the opportunity to kind of do my own thing, open my own small business, hooked to a larger corporation from Ohio at the time. Ran that through its paces for a couple of years, regionally focused on the particularly the northeastern portion of Pennsylvania in the oil and gas market from a construction standpoint. And then that led to an opportunity hyper local here in the Lehigh Valley. There were no more airplanes in Andrew's life. There was no 2-hour car drives to get to the job site.
Right.
I know, I'd miss it. But at the same time, it's been great from a family perspective as well, because now in addition to my 2 daughters, we have 2 sons as well. And I get the opportunity to coach them and volunteer with their organizations. And so it's been very rewarding to kind of have this shrinking of a geography, get me really close to home, hyper local, while at the same time growing in leadership opportunities to run bigger and bigger businesses while I've done it as well. So it's been a great ride.
That's amazing. And I like how you're illustrating that, your family has come first and has been a value that you put above almost everything else.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, and I think I already know the answer, but I'd like to hear from you, like, how has that served you? Like putting family first above everything in your decisions up to this point.
So I think it's always easy when it comes down to it, right? Like family's first. So if you have nothing else in life, but you have your loved ones around you, I think that matters a great deal.
Sure.
So I've been very blessed. I'm filled with humility for the opportunities that I've been able to have in my professional career. But putting family first has been my North Star in some ways. It's been my guidepost. It's been my why. If anybody's a student of Simon Sinek in particular, those types of things, find your why. But my family has been my why. And so I've turned down offers that would have been more lucrative, that could have led to more dollars.
Yeah, sure.
Because one of the things I learned early on in my career, if you will, kind of at that transition point from the military to corporate America, was that you can't put a dollar on time.
Absolutely.
Right. And so having time with my family and being able to coach and to volunteer and to be a dad and to be a husband, like that was super important to me. And that played itself out in my immediate transition from the Marine Corps to Lutron Electronics as well, because one of the things we wanted to do is I married my high school sweetheart. We both went to high school about an hour south of where we are today. Our families are still down in that area.
Wow.
And one of the highest priorities for me when I was looking at what do we want in this transition, was we wanted to get closer to home. We wanted to get closer to our extended families as well. And so that was like the immediate filter that was put on my job search, was I wanted to get somewhere close to home first. And then the second filter was I wanted to be something in the math engineering realm, because that's what's important to me. It's how my brain works.
Right.
And, you have to do some self-reflecting and understand what it is that makes you tick and where you're going to be successful.
Okay. So, all right, when we're talking about like a transition point in time, one of the things that we've probably both seen, I'm sure you saw while you were in, I know I did too. What was the immediate focus at that time? What did you find or think at that time was the challenge? And I'm not talking about like now reflecting, but at that time, what did you think was the most challenging piece as you were making the transition?
I think the most challenging piece was honestly finding a job that could support my family.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, how much money do I have to make?
Right.
Gosh, like I don't have this basic allowance for housing type of piece. How do I put this budget together? So I remember being very hypersensitive to the financial piece of the transition. Reflecting back on it now, there's a whole lot more that I've learned in that time. But I remember, I was probably right 30 years oldish at the time. And so I had never really had to think about some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's provided for you, right?
In many ways, it
issued to
is.
you.
It's, yes.
Okay, so how did you navigate that? Like, what did you do in order to make sure that you had that need met?
I think one of the things that was critical, no matter what those challenges are that folks may experience, is having some good mentors.
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember leaning heavily on a couple of gentlemen in particular. There were Marines that were still in, but they were senior to me, that provided just some incredible insight on the transition process itself.
Oh, cool.
And I remember through my mom and dad actually introducing me to some other folks that building your network began for corporate America. And I remember leaning on some of those early mentors that they had introduced me to that were like, hey, whatever you need in your transition, let me know how I can help. And we'd be happy to try to get your resume in front of the right people. And I would just I tried to develop those relationships and then leaned back onto them with some of those questions that you might be afraid to ask anybody else.
Oh, okay. I mean, so how did you approach those questions? Did you have to swallow some pride in order to just be like, I know I'm going to look dumb when I ask this question?
I guess I don't remember or recall. I mean, it was 17 years ago. I don't remember the specific feeling exactly, but
no, fair.
I don't remember feeling that like I should know this. I'm too good to ask those questions. I think I've always been the type of person that will lean on others. I value others' opinions, and so I think a lot of that just kind of came natural to me, if I'm being honest.
No, that's really cool. And I say that, from a standpoint of like, I know a lot of people that do struggle with that, where it's like, we can't ask a question because I might look dumb.
Yeah.
And part of that, goes back to, and I'm going to butcher this, but like Stoic philosophy of Seneca, where he talks about like, if you want to be good at anything, you have to be prepared to look like a fool, right? But I think there's a lot of magic in that sort of a mindset because, I think there's another beautiful saying here, right? Like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Right.
I
think building that network is critical. No matter how old you are when you're trying to make that transition from the military to civilian life, from the military to corporate America.
Yeah.
The network, I think, is critical to not only the path that you'll find yourself on, but also those folks that will lift you up or support you along the way, even if you're not directly associated with them in corporate America as well. So there's still plenty of people that I reach out to today. I don't do business with them. They're not a client of mine. They're just a friend. And I'll lean on those friendships to ask some of those difficult questions as well.
So how do you find most of your mentors?
I think you got to put yourself out there. I think sometimes they start as you put yourself out there to networking function, and
sure,
you walk up to somebody and introduce yourself, and you hit it off with them, and oh my gosh, there's some common background or commonality here, or oh, you knew that person as well, and I knew that person, and I think even a connection like we had, right? We've met each other one time before this, and you spoke on a panel last summer, and I was moderating that panel, and now here we sit,
right?
Whatever that is, almost 9-10 months later,
right.
But those connections are valuable.
Yeah.
I think putting yourself out there is one way to do that. Asking for connections from other people as well. So I've learned to try to like springboard from one connection that I might already have to somebody else who might have a deeper level of knowledge about something. As an example, hey, do you know anybody who might understand this financial statement a little bit different for my business, not your business, right? So
yes.
Ask those questions, always be trying to grow that network, and certainly never burn any bridges either.
Oh my God. So, I mean, was LinkedIn a part of that journey at all? Did you use it at all?
I was, it's funny that you brought that up because I was actually thinking on the way over here about this, how the world is different today than 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And I actually looked up, like, when was LinkedIn founded? Because I don't remember doing LinkedIn at all when I was doing my transition.
Yeah.
And Google tells me that LinkedIn was founded in 2003. I got out in
Okay.
2007.
All right. Yeah.
So I think they were kind of just cutting their teeth in their infancy there. So I definitely did not use LinkedIn in my job search.
Yeah.
At the time when I got out, I actually worked through a junior military officer recruiting agency. That we had the internet, not at all, right? So we had the internet, searching these things, right? So, but we didn't have near the social media connections. We didn't. The world was not nearly as connected as it is right now.
Absolutely.
Even a decade and a half ago. But I remember, using that internet, doing some searches, finding a couple of different recruiting firms. And then I remember going up to Raleigh. I was stationed in Cherry Point at the time. I remember going up to Raleigh for a couple of hiring interviews or hiring conferences. But it was more a face-to-face thing back then. Yeah. Then I think there's probably a slew of resources available now to folks transitioning that they can make that electronic connection and find their way into anywhere in the world.
Right.
That those opportunities weren't really available when I was making that transition. But what I would caution against, and I have 4 children, and my oldest will be 21 next month.
Wow. Congrats.
So I have, right. That's why I keep my hair short still. I don't want the grays to show.
Yeah.
But I tell my own children this same thing, is that no matter how connected this world gets on the electronic front, there's no substitute for picking up the phone and calling somebody and making that personal connection with your voice.
Absolutely.
And even better than that is going to visit somebody and meeting them face to face. So I love all the tools that are available to folks now, but I caution against what I describe to my own children as hiding behind those tools.
Yeah.
Like don't hide in electronic world.
Right.
It's not enough. It's not enough to develop really close personal relationships. It is not enough to send text messages and emails or connect on any one of those social apps with snaps or whatever else. Right? Yeah. It's just not enough.
Right.
Especially when it comes to the business relationships that you want to develop.
I mean, I completely agree. And, I think that this is actually something that gives military a bit of a leg up, because we work in such a connected environment. Like you're constantly there with your squad leaders and your fire team leaders or what have you. You are there in person. And, if anyone is looking to like stand out a little bit, if you are able to have these face-to-face connections, you're going to stand out a bit from your peers, because a lot of them have trouble with this.
Yeah, that's exactly. So my second daughter is 17. She'll be 18 in a month or so. And she's going through the college application process right now. And we were talking about financial aid packages just last week. And I said, your admissions counselor, call her.
Yeah.
Don't send her an email.
Right.
Call her. But Dad, why would I do that? I said, because everybody else is going to email her.
Right. Yeah.
And you're going to be different if you call her. So find ways to do that. And I know that I start sounding like an old dude when I'm saying things like that.
But it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, but it is simple. It's something that's so simple yet so easy to do these days, and is often overlooked.
Right.
So it's a way that we can stand out.
Yeah. Find ways to be a little bit different.
Right.
Right. And that's one of the easiest things that you could do is go visit somebody or pick up the phone and call them, because everybody else is doing the electronic thing.
So I want to back up just a little bit. The last question was, like, what did you find, or what did you think was the biggest challenge at the time? I'm curious to know, looking back now in reflection, what was actually the biggest challenge?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge looking back was somewhat shifting my mindset. So I remember mentally feeling like disappointed in myself in some ways, that I was kind of giving up this Marine Corps aviation job calling that I had.
Right.
it's something that I had worked so hard to get to.
Yeah.
And I truly felt like all the steps that I had taken as a youth, going through high school, through college, that was the path I was supposed to be on. And so I don't think I was conscious of it at the time, but looking back on it now, that mental shift from what you think you should be doing to now I had to put some other priorities ahead of myself, namely family. and I had to get myself mentally over. I tell people, like, I still joke about, like, I used to be cool. I used to, well, you used to fly airplanes. Yeah, I used to be cool.
Right. I know what you mean, actually.
Now, and then at that stage, I was kind of flying a desk, and then I got into a sales role, and I was out there meeting people, and it took a little while, though, to kind of fall into that new groove. So I think in my present mind, I was worried about finances.
Yeah.
But reflecting back on it, I think it takes a significant amount of those soft skills, that emotional intelligence, those types of things to get yourself out of one mode and into a different mode.
Yeah.
That's out there. So it's interesting. The shift to a for-profit business is a very interesting shift. And I remember that distinctly. I remember that. Like I remember thinking, we used to just kind of put gas in the airplane and we'd go fly just to keep our proficiency, and we're like burning dollars while we're doing that. And then you get into the corporate world, and it's like, I remember one of the earliest lessons: revenue minus cost equals profit, right? And so all this cost, like, why are you spending that dollar? why are we spending that? Because that's all that's doing is pulling away from the profit side of the equation. And I don't remember ever thinking about profit.
No. We were super shooting from that. Yes, absolutely. Because then it was like, what, if you don't use it, you lose it?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use it or lose it mentality. I remember that as well. So that was, on the business side, that was one of those transitions I had to make as well.
So would you say it's almost like an identity shift?
Yes, in some ways I think it is.
Yeah.
Under who you are is always who you are.
Right. Yes, I agree.
So that's and the sum of all the decisions you made is kind of, it creates your character, and the environment that you've been in, it builds and creates that character and supports who you are. That doesn't change.
I agree.
That doesn't change.
Yeah.
But if you want to think of it through, what's on my business card type of thing, and it used to say I'm a Marine, and that comes with a certain level of respect or pride or meaning, like a deeper meaning.
Right.
We talk about being a part of something bigger than yourself, right? That's what you get coming out of the military. That's what a lot of people's minds are trained towards. It's not about you, it's about the team.
Right. Yeah.
And then that mental shift of, what's my business card say now? Like, what's my role? What's my job? And I remember for a long time, for at least the first decade, feeling like, what's the bigger picture? Like, what am I part of that's bigger than me? And I would always search for that, and I would always try to find my way onto teams that had like-minded people, that it was about something more than myself. But I remember the feeling, especially through that first decade, as I said, of the Marine Corps. Nearly everybody is thinking, I'm part of something bigger than myself.
Yeah, 100%.
And in the corporate world, it's not like that. It's just not. Some people are in it for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And you find your way onto teams, and those people generally kind of get chewed up and spit out. And so it's important to drive the right culture in the businesses that we lead and that we're a part of now, so that we can be creating this thing that people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. But that's a tough thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do as a business leader, to create this feeling of something bigger than yourself.
I couldn't agree more. we at Prize, when we did our initial bit of research, like one of the big things that we found were there are two problems that we came back to over and over. The first one being that there's a plethora of resources out there. It's difficult to navigate that space. And I think we understand that, especially after we get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other one that I think is missed oftentimes is that, there's this perceived lack of identity and purpose upon getting out. And to your point, yes, it is always within here. But when you first go into the military, the first thing they do is to shave your head, right? There is no more I, whether it's now a team. This is so important while we're in. To your point of we're part of something bigger. We're serving each other. And it's a large reason why we're so effective. It's a large reason why we're keeping the people next to us alive. That's what's driving us. But when we get out, they're just figured out.
Right.
And that part, of getting out and putting focus on the security aspect of I need money, right? I need to have a family. I need to take care of them. Or what can I do? I need a job. We try to replace our way of being with a job. And I appreciate you, illustrating that point. And I would urge you all to kind of reflect on this is that identity is still within us. And a lot of times it can be very challenging to find.
Yeah. And I think we started talking about it right at the beginning of this episode is that that volunteer spirit is where I leaned into.
Yeah.
That's where I leaned into. So there are a number of things that organizations, that companies are doing nowadays. I reflect on some discussions that I've just even had over the last week about employee resource groups.
Yeah.
So many companies out there have started these employee resource groups to get folks who may have shared past common experiences, like veterans. So people may have a veterans employee resource group. So if it's a larger or even a mid-size or smaller organization, then just the scale or the size of that employee resource group might change. But companies are trying to find these like-minded people, but we didn't have that at the time when I was coming out. And I remember leaning into volunteer opportunities because that was allowing me this sense of greater purpose, the sense of helping others, the sense of being a part of something bigger. And I remember especially coaching, I derived so much inner joy every week from getting out there on the field and coaching my children, but kind of making a difference in the lives of some other people along the way. That really helped kind of in my transition as well. I distinctly remember that the coaching opportunities that I had helped me in my mental shift from I used to have this greater purpose. Now, I'm contributing to the business and I'm growing and I'm getting promotions and there's some pay raises coming along and I'm feeling more financially secure and in general. But and then once you're in it a few years and you've had an opportunity to be on that team and get to know the people and then those smaller close-knit groups start forming again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they did before. So give yourself some grace in that transition. It's not going to happen instantaneously, but it will come to a new equilibrium, if you will. But I would highly encourage people to continue to volunteer, find ways to volunteer.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're gonna hear more about exactly that right there. I think the community piece is so important. That's another thing, like camaraderie that is often lost, and I think it's cool. So employee resource groups, for those who aren't familiar, are making the transition. It's just like an internal community that people are building in certain businesses and so on and so forth.
Right.
And they can be very helpful. They can be based on, like, as you mentioned, like veterans or like-minded interests, like, guitarists or, people who ride horses or what have you.
Right.
But I do agree with you. I think that, like, that community piece is important, and it exists. It's everywhere, right? You can just go meetup.com these days and you can find a bunch of people that are like-minded. You can go find your D&D folks to play video games or whatever together. Man, I just missed that one. D&D nerd. Anyway, so is there anything at this point, again, so now reflecting more, like, is there anything that you still struggle with? It's been 17 years, right? So
it has been 17 years, and I still, like, I'm almost towards the backside of the transition, right? It's because it's been 17 years. I'm almost 50 years old. I got maybe, good Lord willing, 15 years, maybe, if things happen right, until I'm in retirement type of world, okay. So like from the business transition standpoint, I've been out for 17 years.
Yeah.
I was in for 9 years prior to that, right? So from my career standpoint, it's been 26 years and I got 15 type of years left.
Right.
So I'm kind of towards the backside of that. The interesting thing that I don't know when it changed. The question is, are there things I still struggle with now? Ironically, the thing I struggle with now is, man, what if I would have just stayed in?
Yeah. Okay.
What if I would have just stayed in? Because all of my peers have retired
right
now over the last 5 to 6 years. They've all hit their 20, and now they've all retired. And I struggle with that sometimes. I struggle to think like, should I have stayed in? And I don't know the answer.
Right.
I don't know the answer. It doesn't hold me back from anything. I'm at peace with it all.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no doubt about it. I'm at peace with it. We have a sign, like one of those motivational posters hanging on our bathroom wall. So we see it every morning, and it says, "Your journey's unfolding exactly as it should be."
I love that.
So I believe in that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
The path that I've been on, that I'm still on now, it's exactly as it was meant to be.
Right.
There is a higher power at work. The people that have been brought into my life, like even in my most recent career change here about 6 months ago, I started with Barry Isett and Associates, and there were literally 3 angels that came into my life in the form of friends, and I have no doubt about it. There is not a single doubt in my mind that these angels came into my life to put me on this path.
Yeah.
Right. It was a shaky transition from my last job to this one. But this is my calling. This is where I was meant to be. And those angels came into my life to help me down that path. So I struggle a little bit with should I have stayed?
Right.
But I'm at peace with it all as well, because there's not a doubt in my mind that this is the path I'm meant to be on. And if I had stayed, I don't even know if I'd have my 2 sons. I really don't.
Oh, interesting.
Because they were both born after we got out.
Yeah.
And if I would have stayed, the op tempo was again still high, and deployment cycles, and who knows?
Yeah,
I just don't even know. So I'm totally at peace with it all, but I do struggle every now and again with, should I have stayed?
Yeah. So I mean, like with the people that are just now retiring, that were your peers while you were still in, like, what are you seeing with them?
I see them. It's another reason that like there's this higher power at work. I see them leaning on me.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, I know it was a while ago, but when you made your transition, and what were some of the resources you used, and who'd you reach out to, and what does this mean in the business world, and what's an operations management type of role? Because people don't even know what that is coming out of the military.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting with them. They're on the path they're meant to be on as
absolutely.
well. And I have one of my classmates from the Naval Academy. She's an astronaut.
Wow, that's cool.
Like super cool. She was a Hornet pilot as well.
Nice.
And every time I see a social media post about another thing that she's done, I tell people when I grow up, I want to be her.
Yeah. How about this?
And but being able to use her career and what she's done and what she's still doing today as an image and a role model for my own daughters to aspire to various things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see either of them being an astronaut. I don't see either of them being a military pilot.
It shows them what's possible, right?
But it shows them what's possible out there. So find those role models, find those mentors. Always be building that network. I think those are the things that are going to set you up for success anywhere in life, but certainly in that transition from the military style to civilian corporate style.
Yeah. Well, I love this. This is actually a great segue to the next question I have. Like, what would you give? Like if you had specific advice or, like what these are the 2 things that you should probably focus on and getting out. And I don't want you to scope this just for the service member. Like what about their spouse or their children? Like what are some things that they should focus on throughout this transition in order to help them with success in this area?
Yeah, I think you probably should have asked me that yesterday. I could have prepared some more thoughts, but no.
Yeah. Notes for next time.
Yeah, no. I think it helps to write down your priorities, not just think about them, but actually write them down, and then figure out which one of those things are non-negotiable.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier that getting back closer to family was priority number 1 for my wife and I when we were transitioning out. So putting those lists of that's going to be different for everybody.
Absolutely.
Some people may prioritize one thing more than other. Have a priority list and figure out which one of those things are non-negotiable, and don't sell yourself short from those things. Right. So that's step number 1. I think step number 2 though is understand, and maybe step number 1 draws you down this line too, but like figure out that why. Like figure out your why, and what's going to give you life, what's going to make you feel like it's not work, that it's actually a calling, that it's something that you're supposed to be doing. That's going to fulfill you. It's going to carry you, bolster you in the tougher times. It's going to let you ride the highest of highs when you're in the thick of it all again.
Absolutely.
So find those priorities for your. If you're single, find your priorities. If you're married and you have a family, find those priorities. But then figure out what's really going to be fulfilling for you as well. And if you don't know, that's fine. That's fine. You don't know. I would encourage people to reflect back on some of the experiences they've had that they've drawn fulfillment from, and try to figure out like what was it about that experience that made me feel good when I was doing that. Was it that I was working on a team? Was it that I accomplished an objective? Was it that I got rewarded at the end? Was it?
Yeah.
Whatever those things were, find those things, because that's life's short, man. Right?
Yeah.
Life's short.
Yeah.
You can find things that truly fulfill you. That's what I would encourage anybody to do. And the third thing I would say is that one of my mentors back in the Marine Corps used to say, like, money's just units. It's just, there's more units. There's units coming in and there's units going out.
Absolutely.
There's units coming in, there's units going out. And so money is only one small piece of the overall compensation package, the overall quality of life package. And so by having number 1 and number 2 already done, what are your priorities? Where are you going to find fulfillment? Then when it comes to the overall compensation or the job that you're looking for, or that you find, don't discount all those other fringe benefits or things other than the actual take-home pay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because there are plenty of opportunities to get paid a whole lot more, but have a terrible quality of life, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So other people wouldn't find it a terrible quality of life, but in my situation, I would. But those, to me, what I've seen through other people as well is that leads to burnout oftentimes.
Absolutely.
If you sacrifice everything for I got to get the highest paid job I can, that oftentimes comes with the other challenges that leads to burnout. A quick story. I remember Lutron Electronics, fantastic employer, like no doubt about it. And I would speak super highly of them to anybody. The entrepreneurial spirit that they breed in people,
that's cool.
The innovation that they've done,
yeah,
it's tremendous. The people, the intelligence that exists within that company is fantastic. My role at the time was outside sales. I was on an airplane a lot.
Yeah.
And the end for me at Lutron came when I jumped on another airplane on another Sunday, and I left my family and I flew to an airport. And I remember blacking out for like 30 seconds. I was walking through the terminal and I didn't remember where I was. I was just in another airport, going to get another rental car, going to going to another meeting the next day.
Mm-hmm.
and something's got to change. Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
Right. That was my role at the time. And there would have been other opportunities within Lutron for me to change my role. Lutron had done such a great job breeding this entrepreneurial spirit, and I had built such a network through my travels,
right,
that another opportunity presented itself to me then, and I had to follow that path. So I've been very long-winded on my answers, but hopefully some of them.
No, hey, it makes it good, because otherwise this is going to be like a 5-minute interview.
Hopefully some folks find little nuggets, little bits and pieces in there.
I mean, I had it, so thank you. And when you talk about identifying your why, there's a couple of exercises that come to mind for me, but I'm curious, are there exercises or ways to tease that out that you can think of?
I don't know that it's. I'd be interested in actually hearing what the exercises are. We should talk about that, because in my mind, my why is associated with my own character. Sure. Which has been built through a series of all my experiences.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, to me, as I was reflecting on my why, it's a constant reflection in some ways. You're always
never stop
figuring out, has anything changed, or what's most important. And for me, it was the life that I've lived up to this point that has created my why. So that's where family has become this central focus for me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, now my children are all getting to this spot where now I have a different responsibility to them. Like when they were this big, you got to make sure that they're in bed on time and they brush their teeth and they do those things. And now I'm teaching life lessons to my own children, right, about managing finances and job hunting and college searches and how to be a leader on a sports team, and how to, I like to talk about like that servant leader mentality. Absolutely. And it's not out loud GL. It's much, much, much more about the example that you're setting than anything else. But no, I mean, what kind of?
Well, I mean, like things that come to mind for me, I have two in particular. Like one is the 7 levels deep. You heard of that one?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like whenever I go to do something, you ask yourself, like, let's just say I'm going to go buy a car, right? And you say, okay, well, why? And well, because I like that car. Why? And you just keep going until about 7 times. Estimate, it doesn't have to be exactly 7, but you get to a point where it's like, I have no other answers. It's like, I want it because it makes me feel alive as I drive down the road and my hair's blowing in the wind, and or it could be something as simple as like, I have to feed my family, and and I care about them, and I'm coming from a place of love and taking care of those that I really care about.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess another way of putting this is having, and you pointed this out actually with money, is that you have like this means and you have an end, right? Money is nothing but a means. Like when people want money, it's not because they want money.
Right.
It's because they want to satiate some sort of a need,
right,
or some sort of a feeling.
Right.
And it could be a feeling of like power. It could be a feeling of significance. It could be a feeling of security. It could be a feeling of giving, because maybe that's what you plan to do with it.
Yes.
So it's a means to an end. So I guess that's what I was getting at, is like, for there are a lot of people out there, and I'm sure you've met some, I know I have, of like, they have a really hard time figuring out this why, or like their priorities or their values, or like why they're doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I here? And I think that these exercises can be really illuminating, because to your point, right? Like if we don't have our priorities set, a lot of times we're just living by accident. And I think it's really actually easy to do that in the military, because you're being told where to be, when to be there, so on and so forth. I mean, we were installed this purpose and this reason, but I'm being told what to do and when to do it and why to do it, right? So it's really easy to just kind of live by accident. But when you get out, you can continue living by accident. But that's a slippery slope, right?
Yes.
Now there really are far fewer people telling you what to do or why to do it, and you can kind of be like, oh, I'll do this and I'll go do that. And a lot of it is exploration, and I'm not trying to knock that. However, I think that what's really important with that is like, going back to those basics of like, what are my priorities? What are my values? What's non-negotiable? And then becoming congruent in that. I know like in my own personal journey, I struggled with anxiety quite a bit getting out. And a lot of it was because I was living by accident. I didn't know why I was doing certain things. I was incongruent, and once I took the time to really be deliberate about like, what are my values? Why am I here? What am I trying to serve? What is my purpose? And I became clear with that. That's step number one, writing it down, to your point. But the second piece of that is like, okay, now I have to live it.
Right.
Now I have to do that every single day and instilling habits around it. And as silly as it is, like I love this app right now on my phone because it's silly. It's a game. But it's called Habitica, and it's gamified habits. And I love it because to me, when I look at it, I'm like, I can't break the chain. So every single day I'm like, oh snap, I didn't like, write my gratitude journal or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I need to do that because otherwise I'm going to break the chain. And as silly as that is, but it has instilled now these habits. And like anxiety, when it was very, very high for me in a lot of areas, and imposter syndrome, so on and so forth, I wound up getting through all that by becoming congruent with my values.
That's a great perspective. That's a great perspective.
So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I really do think it's often overlooked. And I think that identity and purpose piece is just something that's just, we have to put some more focus on it, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a great way to do that is surround yourself with people who will lift you up as well.
Yeah. Rising tide, huh?
You can't go it alone.
Yes.
Right? So have you read Make Your Bed?
No, I haven't.
Admiral McRaven.
No. I saw it. It's on my list. Yeah.
Most people have seen the YouTube speech,
right?
University of Texas commencement. But he wrote a book about it as well, and there's some more detail in there as well. And I think it's chapter 2. It talks about you can't go it alone, and it's so true. That book, you could read it in half a day, not even. I mean, it's like 100 pages, big print too, very easy read.
All right, I'm gonna get it.
Just filled with fantastic advice for life, no matter who you are. I think it would really, really resonate with folks transitioning from the military as well, no matter what branch, no matter where you come from, and anywhere else. But that concept of not going it alone is very, very true.
Right.
And so surround yourself with people who will lift you up and will support you along that path. Don't go it alone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all right. So you're like throwing in my segues, maybe because you're looking at my list here. But like, what would be your favorite book?
That might be it. That might be it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be it. I have so I read that book years and years ago, and then it kind of circled back around to me because of all things. I was searching for some Christmas gifts a few years ago, and there's a box set with 3 books, and that was one of them.
Oh,
and
cool.
so I got it for my son and for my godson, who they're both early teenage years, and so I thought it would be a good message for them to read. And then at the time, I was, and I still do volunteer with the Veteran Military Council here for the Chamber of Commerce. I like that book so much that I bought 30 of them. I bought 30 of them, and I gave them out to all the members of the board for the Veteran Military Council, and I still have a few left over that I give out now to some of our employees. And some people, they like sign the book, or they, they put a little note inside of it, and I intentionally didn't do that. And I said, I gave that to folks, and I said, please read this. Know that I consider you somebody who's in the boat rowing with me right now, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And I said, take this book. I hope it changes your life. Sign your name on the inside cover. Don't put a message. Don't put anything else. Just sign your name on the inside cover and go give it to somebody else.
Yeah, I love that.
Who knows? Maybe it boomerangs back around to me someday, or somebody else. But I think the message I conveyed to some folks when they were leaving was, there's a somewhat famous quote. I think it was Maya Angelou, who said, the true meaning of life is to plant a tree under whose shade you don't intend to sit.
Wow, I love that. That's beautiful.
It's one of those things that galvanizes me to try to make a difference, just because.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Favorite book I think it's been very, very impactful for me, and I hope that it's then been impactful for other people, because I tend to share it a lot.
All right.
I'm probably gonna need another 30.
That sounds like you need another 50 or 100. I love that. Thank you for that.
How about you? What's your favorite book?
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich has been one of my. So I picked up Think and Grow Rich before I joined the military. So I mean, for me, for those who don't know, I went to Penn State, and when I did an internship at Walter Reed, because I was pre-med, I was like, oh my God, I'm bored. And I had to figure out what I wanted to do, right? And I did some reflection, and I was like, since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I saw Top Gun, of course, yes. And I'm not going to deny it, I saw Top Gun, I was like, I wanted to go do that. And I resolved right then, I was like, that's what I'm going to go do. And when I told my mom, she basically just laughed at me. She was like, there's no way. To me, you have to understand, when I was in high school, I was like punk rock, I was like anti-establishment, spiky hair, collar, the whole thing, did not like rules, did not like authority. And when I told them when I was going to go join the Marine, they were like, you're crazy. All right. But I read that book at the time, and it instilled in me this fire that was just like, no, you can do anything you set your mind to. Anything. And to this day, I did the same thing, actually. I bought the book. I think I bought it for everyone that Christmas and handed it out.
Right.
It just really set me on this journey of self-improvement and growing my spirit and my soul. And then fast forward out of the military, for me, Tony Robbins has been a big influence for me. And a lot of his books have really helped towards that too. So I don't know, to this day, Think and Grow Rich is still a big one. Yeah. And so podcasts, do you listen to any podcasts or anything like that?
I listen to a few different podcasts. The one that I always come back to though is Jocko Willink's.
Yeah. I love that one.
I come back to that, and some of the episodes I don't listen to the whole thing, but I listen to enough to just kind of re-energize myself with that.
He wrote kid books. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Have your kids
I've gotten
written
a couple of them.
Yeah, they're fantastic. My son loved them.
My son did as well.
Yeah.
Makes me want to get into jiu-jitsu as well.
A little bit. I don't think I could take on Jocko though.
Nope.
No, in fact, I know I couldn't take on Jocko. Jocko, if you're watching, I'm not inviting that. No, that's cool. And in fact, I really enjoyed his book, Extreme Ownership, too. I thought that was a very eye-opening book for me as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a ton of lessons there that again resonate because of shared experience as well. And he has a great way of telling stories.
Yes, he does. And he's got that voice too.
Right?
On one of these days. Well, actually, hey, I want to go back to one real quick. Were there any resources that you used on transition? Any specific nonprofits or benefits or tools that you use?
There were none that I can think of immediately.
Okay.
And the first thought that comes to my mind though is that the world today is entirely different.
It is, yeah.
Than it was 17 years ago,
right,
when I was getting out. So, I think there are a tremendous amount of resources out there, almost to the point that trying to navigate all those resources becomes a daunting task.
It's its own problem
in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think the resources are there, but I don't think any of them replace the personal connection and the building of your network. So I think use those resources for the purpose of connections and building the network, and I don't want to sell any of it short though either. There are a ton of resources out there that are not available, that were not available for me when I was transitioning back in 2007. I think the resources that I did use, we already talked about them. So
okay.
I think they were all human capital type resources. They were all people that I would lean to and mentors with past experience or just a different perspective on things. That those connections to people are what really I leaned on the most when I was making that transition.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Hey, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wisdom. Thank you all for stopping by and watching this episode with Andrew. If you have any comments, please drop them below. Please subscribe. We could really, really use that. Look forward to releasing our app this summer for all of you to to try out and help with the navigation of your transition process. If you have any suggestions for who else I should bring onto the podcast, or what questions we could ask to help make this more impactful for you, that'd be great. Thank you for stopping by.